I apologize.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Oops, he's back.
Here we go.
So Neil, I think we are ready, but let give people a few more minutes so that they can join, and I'll let you know when you have a good number of people. They currently in the lobby, the networking. They're actually moving from the opening ceremony. Now they're actually doing networking. So we need to ask them to join this session, which has started.
They have to migrate.
Yeah, they should migrate.
Okay. Charles?
Yes?
We want to show the two videos first of Rich Roberts and co-chair.
Yes.
Can we do that?
Yes.
Okay.
But do you want to do that once we have a good attendance, because people are migrating?
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. Let's wait a few minutes and then we'll... But if you can,
hello everybody,
just make sure they're lined up.
The next session is about to start. Can you please join us in the leaders panel session? Okay, all right.
We're waiting for everyone to move rooms. Of course, when they see us, they may leave.
Professor Jacques, this is Georgie. You work with robotics, no?
Sorry?
You work within the robotics industry?
Yes, we work with laparoscopic industry, which is car stores. We work with robotic company, especially Intuitive Surgical, but also Medtronic and also Verb and Google Johnson & Johnson and Medicaroid.
Nice.
So a lot of company today working on robotics because, in the next 10 years, I think majority or perhaps 100% of operation will be by with a robot.
Absolutely. So is that why your where you are now looks like a space station? Because that is fantastic.
That is a positive effect of COVID, because we have so many courses now and webinars. So we have organized like a TV little channel. So we can have 3 chairmen during the course, and we have a team of 5 audiovisual technicians. It was done in 2 or 3 weeks, but I think that was a good effect of COVID.
Okay. Wow, no pressure to the rest of us.
And not very expensive because we bought everything by internet, the furniture, the screens. So it's it's a good space. Non, j'ai pas
Neil, how does that make you feel? I mean, I've had a very plain background.
I have a Christmas tree. That's the best I can do.
All the best, Neil. I'll come in at the end of the session. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we can get started. If that's okay,
yes.
Would you want to introduce the first video?
Yes.
Thank you. And I'm going to hide myself, so I'm not going to be visible.
Okay. So, can I begin?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. So, welcome everybody for this very exciting session of the Ames Next Einstein Forum. And I must say, this is a very positive feeling to have all of our young African scientists joining us from Africa and around the world. And of course, the spirit of this meeting is that our ability to understand nature connects all of us as human beings. And although we are caught in the middle of this pandemic, technology is allowing us to meet and to share our ideas and our dreams. And the Ames Next Einstein Forum is very likely one of the most positive gatherings taking place anywhere on the planet. We're all excited and united by the prospect of a generation of young African scientists who will change the face of science in the future. So in this session, we will hear from some of the world's top scientists and see what guidance they have to offer this new generation. So we have 3 scientists with us in person, or at least online at the moment. But before we hear from them, I would like to play 2 videos from 2 other very prominent scientists. And so we'll watch who could not be with us today due to other engagements. So the first is Rich Roberts, who won his Nobel Prize in 1993 for understanding that the genetic information encoded in our DNA, in a mathematical code, can occur in disconnected pieces. The genes are not always in one connected strand. This knowledge was very useful for medicine. So in this short video, he offers some advice to aspiring young scientists. Welcome, Rich Roberts.
Thank you.
Nobel Prize winner in 1993 for discovering a very important feature of genes. In particular, he says that luck plays a big role in science. So please elaborate.
Luckiest thing that ever happened to me happened on 9/11. This was the time when the first plane went into the World Trade Tower. I was booked on that plane until 2 weeks before it took off. And I was on my way to a meeting in California. The meeting in California was moved forward 1 day. And so I took that plane the day before it went into the World Trade Tower. Wow. Now that is luck. That is luck. So I always try to remember that I'm living now on borrowed time as a result of that.
So I guess this has made you appreciate life.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah.
You know, I've always really wanted to help other people when I could. And I think I felt that more strongly since winning the Nobel Prize, actually. Mm-hmm. Because one of the things I found was that before I won the prize, you know, I would talk and people would or pretend to listen, but they'd rarely act. And after I won it, people would listen more intently and very often would act to this. And I thought, well, you know, why not take advantage of this piece of luck? Nobel laureates really can do to help cause. And I've tried to find things that have both humanitarian causes, but also have some science. If science is being misused, I try to help with that too. I also think it's very important for scientists to learn to speak to the public in language they can understand. I have something I call the grandmother test, which I to students and postdocs who work with me, and I say, go and talk to your mother and tell her what it is you do in the lab every day and convince her that you are a wonderful scientist, and get it to a point where not only does she understand it, but she understands it well enough to go and boast about you to all her friends in terms that are real, you know, where she's really spreading it. And I found this to be actually a lot of students find this useful, to go and talk to the lay public about what they do and explain in layman's terms what it is they're doing.
So let me ask you for any sort of words of advice you would give to an aspiring young scientist in Africa in particular. What should they do?
The first thing to do is to find out what it is you're really passionate about. So, you know, if you love physics or you love chemistry or you love biology, then make sure that this is what you choose to pursue. And I personally, I'm a big fan of biology because there is so much that we don't know. And there are many places where we can make interesting discoveries. And it can also have a very profound impact on life, some of these discoveries. For instance, you know, the discovery I made for the Nobel Prize, 1977, long time ago now. Only about 3 years ago was there a practical application of this in medicine. It's been applied by actually an ex-postdoc of mine to spinal muscular atrophy. And he discovered a cure for the disease because the mechanism that caused the disease was based on my discovery. And so it can sometimes take a long time before basic research can lead to practical consequences. But almost always, if you're doing basic research and you make discoveries, it will have practical consequences. It may just take a long time.
Right.
And the nice thing about biology is that because we don't know very much, it becomes much easier to make discoveries. And then once you've found this thing that you really love to do, then talk to mentors, talk to teachers, talk to professionals, read a lot. And not just about the maybe one thing that you're focused on, read around your subject too, and find out how other things, other discoveries may actually make it easy for you to pursue the thing you want to pursue. And then find a career path and head down it. But the one thing I would say, and I feel very strongly about this, is if you're really engrossed in doing something, and then you find out about something that is far more interesting, switch and do it. Okay, don't keep pursuing something if you see something else that's more exciting and more interesting. Once you're really enthusiastic about something and get into it, work is not work anymore. Work is a hobby. It's fun. I don't consider myself to work, and yet if I ask my wife, she will tell me I work all the time.
Great. Thank you for that. We also have another short movie from a mathematician this time. His name is Jacques Barker, and he won the Fields Medal in 2018 for his theorems in algebraic geometry. His origins are very interesting. He was a refugee from the Kurdish region of Iran, having lived through the Iran-Iraq war in that area as a child. But he went on to pursue pure mathematics. So let's play the video of Jacques Barker.
I was born in 1978 in the Kurdish region in Iran, very close to the border with Iraq. Just a few months after I was born, there was a revolution in Iran. And then also after a couple of years, there was the Iran-Iraq war, which lasted for 8 years. So most of my primary education happened during that time of war. So this probably is similar to the experience of some of you in recent times, unfortunately, because there are so many conflicts around the world. So when I was a child, my parents were very serious about education, so they encouraged me and my siblings to study as good as we can. And I was also quite lucky to have an older brother who was also interested in education and also in general in science and in technology. He tried to teach me some mathematics in middle school. And the schools that we had, you could say, good teachers, but the schools were very basic, essentially almost nothing in the school, just a room, basically. There was no other equipment in the class, just blackboard and so on. So we didn't have anything really special. And but the time that I got into high school, I started to study mathematics more seriously. And the reason for this is because I started to enjoy mathematics, not just for getting grades, but I felt that there is something interesting in mathematics, just in the way that people enjoy listening to music or people listening to poetry. I thought that there is some kind of inner beauty in mathematics also that I can enjoy. One of the things that I really liked, even when I was young, was that mathematics is very precise and there is basically no argument. If you prove a result, then it will stay there forever. Only reading and learning is not enough. In fact, I just wanted also to have my own mathematics. So I started at least try to do research. Obviously, I didn't prove anything significant, anything important, but that's not the point. The point is that I just had this feeling that that process of discovery is also something really enjoyable. And that's something anyone can do under reasonable conditions. There is simply no difference between an American student, British student, and an African student. It's all about education. It's all about being in the right environment, having people to support you. But even without support, it's actually possible to do something. It's possible to learn. It's possible to succeed.
You mentioned your older brother, but to what extent did your family and your community in Iran, in Kurdistan, did they support and believe in you?
Well, there was some kind of support, you could say. For example, just being in that particular culture was important for me because even though we didn't have so much things, I mean, in a sense, we were not poor, but we also were not rich. But the thing is that cultures can support people mentally. For example, I never felt alone. But now people in the richest countries, they have the problem. In fact, it's becoming one of the biggest problems that people become alone. But in cultures, especially traditional cultures, maybe it's the same in Africa, people can get social support, even if it's not directly about mathematics, but they can be happy in their own environment. And that's quite important. So
yes,
my family tried to push me maybe to study well, to get a job and so on. My older brother influence was much deeper because he also believed in learning just for the sake of the knowledge and to enjoy, to create something, not just to get a job. So that was quite important. But if you mean by support, like people in my school or in the community to come and tell me, you are great that you go to become a mathematician, definitely not.
Fantastic. Okay, I hope you enjoyed those. And now it's a great pleasure to introduce our three live guests. And actually, they all share a common interest, which is in light. Donna Strickland manipulated light into pulses or chirps of unprecedented intensity. And for this, she won her Nobel Prize rather recently. Jacques Maresco used light to perform surgery remotely across the Atlantic. And Francois Anglair understood how particles gain mass and avoid moving at the speed of light. So each one of them used mathematics. Donna's breakthrough was guided by a clear understanding of how light waves travel and interfere. And Jacques' innovations in surgery relied very heavily on mathematics and informatics. And Francois was led by mathematical theory to predict a new particle, which was discovered 50 years after the prediction at the Large Hadron Collider. So to all of them, let me invite you to contribute now, and in particular to discuss what do you think about the role of mathematics in science, and what motivates you? Is it the beauty of nature, or is it the usefulness of your work? So maybe let me begin with Donna, who is joining us from Canada. And this is very early for her, so let me just begin by thanking her for joining us so early. Donna, over to you.
Happy to be here. Yeah, so I enjoyed those videos. I think, too, that I liked math in high school. I thought of them as puzzles, and I enjoy doing puzzles. And so, obviously, math is the language of physics. And, in Canada, we should be bilingual, and I have to tell you, I can only speak English, but I always said math is my second language. That was all I had, was English and math. Otherwise, I can't speak to anyone.
Right.
But now I'm much more in the lab than doing math, I have to confess. Although, not right now because of COVID, but without COVID, I'm more in the lab.
Right. Thank you. So, Jacques, can I go over to you for some introductory comments?
Yes, just
by the way, let me also mention that Jacques is founding a school for surgery in Rwanda, which will train people from all over Africa in the kind of fancy techniques which he is using. Please go ahead.
So, you imagine I'm very proud. I think that Neil Turok is a politician, a diplomat, and a psychologist, because he knows very well the ego of a surgeon. Because he invited me to join this lecture some days ago, but just he said, I have only 3 Nobel Prize, 1 field medals, etc. So
not enough.
I was very proud. And when I announced that to my wife, that I participate to a Congress of Mathematics, she said, oh, they know that you are so useless at maths, because I am really totally useless at maths. I just want to explain that why I am fascinated by mathematics, computer science, etc., even if I don't understand this science. It is just because, and I will speak about that tomorrow during my lecture, my background is a normal background of surgeons. But in 1991, I attended an exceptional lecture. It was in Germany, given by Rick Satava, a surgeon of the US Army, a surgeon. And he has explained, it was in 1991, for surgery, the future power of internet. It didn't exist. In Europe, it was 1992. The development of robotics, that didn't exist. The development of mathematics applied to virtual reality, augmented reality. For a surgeon like me, I have understood less than 20% of the lecture. But I came back and immediately with my co-workers, I said, we need to build an institute totally dedicated to computer science and surgery, because the way of the revolution in surgery will not be coming from surgeons, but from computer scientists. And that is the reason we have created IRCAD in France now 25 years ago or more. And now we have the same. We have an institute mirror in Taiwan. We have one in Sao Paulo, one in Rio de Janeiro. We are going to have one in China, one in US also, and something exceptional. It will be in Kigali, the IRCAD Africa. So it is not only a school and an education school for surgeons. It is also a big team of computer scientists, artificial intelligence engineers, researchers, developers. And we will have this common team. I think we are going to recruit around between 30 and 40 researchers, computer scientists, especially artificial intelligence dedicated to surgery. So it's a reason I'm so proud to explain that, because mathematics has really application to save life. And that is really, I always say 1 brain of a surgeon plus 1 brain of a surgeon, it's only 1 brain, because we think the same. But if we have a strong team of computer scientists and mathematicians, it changes everything. So thank you for the invitation.
Lovely.
It's really a pleasure for me to share that.
Thank you. And let me encourage the attendees to attend Jacques' talk tomorrow. So finally, let me turn to Francois Anglair. I'm very lucky to have Francois as a very close personal friend. And in fact, I invited him to visit Rwanda a couple of years ago after he won his Nobel Prize. But I knew him even before the prize. He was just as interesting. So let me ask Francois to comment on these topics.
On which topics?
What is your, you know.
Okay. Well, I am not sure what I wanted to do when I was young. And but I always liked mathematics. People always said around me when discussing, when I discussed and asked something, and they say, "Oh, I don't understand because it's mathematics." I never had this type of feeling. For me, it's like being born in it, and so I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And but parents and the mathematical teacher, they always said that I should go to be an engineer, which I did at the end. I am an engineer, and I hated it, I must say. I hated it because, after all, I realized that I was more interested in trying to find the reason for what things were working. And so I was more and more driven to theoretical physics. So after being an engineer, I decided to do physics. And then I found a way that work became a total pleasure. As I hear with Roberts here, I think that had the same feeling for me. Also, I had the impression, at least once I was in physics, that I never worked in my life, and I have no intention to start.
Okay, let me also mention that Francois has an incredible life story. Like Kosha, he was a refugee, and he lived through a war, but this time in possibly even more extreme conditions. He was a hidden child, where when the Nazis occupied Belgium, a Catholic priest helped to hide him and his family, and he was isolated and managed to live through this terrible period and survive it and somehow draw strength from it. And then Francois visited Rwanda and, of course, visited the Genocide Memorial Museum in Rwanda. And so maybe you can talk a little bit about that, Francois.
Yes. So I won't talk, of course, about my genocide and your genocide. That's not the point. And but certainly I came here to give some lecture, and as I say, I was very impressed by what I saw at Ames. You invited me at Ames, and I gave some lecture on physics and on the evolution of physics and so like this. And then being in Rwanda and frequented these students which were extremely bright, but all of them had tragedy in their families. And so I taught to them both physics and also what happens to them. And I could not avoid the fact that I wanted to go to the memorial of genocide. And this impressed me a lot. And what impressed me even more than the stories and the way it was taught for Rwanda was the fact that I discovered that in the same memorial they had a part of the building that was devoted to different kinds of genocide, including the Holocaust of Jews, where I escaped directly, and the Armenian genocide, and anyone you want to cite. But this I found an extremely impressive and humanitarian thing, that you can not only talk about your own living through the genocide, but also realize that this is a plague in all humanity.
Thank you. So, thank you very much, Francois. Let's see if we have any questions from the audience. So I have the first one. It says, I love the advice to switch to something we love when we find it more interesting. However, the funding model in Africa in research is often too restrictive, and we have to deliver pre-specified milestones. How do we change that culture? So let's go back to Donna.
I wish I had an answer to that one. I think a lot of people, though, write their grants and have their milestones, but they probably also have little sideline projects on the side. And if they take off, then of course you can write that for your next grant. But I agree, it's hard to have an off-the-wall idea and get it funded. And so you sort of have to almost do it as a sideline project until it gets some traction. It doesn't stop you from talking to your colleagues and getting all the help that you might need. And without the funding, you can start just getting the idea. I remember my postdoc supervisor, Paul Corcoran, he always had just him and one postdoc, and that was the whole group for a while. Now he has 20-something. But he would say he had the whole experiment in his head and knew that it would work because he had actually sort of done it in his head all the way through. So that by the time he needed to really do it, he was sure it was going to work. And he pretty, he could convince people that it was the way to go. So I think that's it. I hope we get over this idea of being very applied and being milestones, because I think and it was already mentioned, it takes a long time to start with the idea and get to the application. And governments and the people that, then vote in their governments and stuff have to really understand that there has to be the backbone of science so that 20 years later, we're using that science to make the applications. So all of us, especially I think, has already been said, the Nobel Prize winners seem to be listened to more than other people. And that's one of the things that we have to get out and keep telling all of our governments, that we have to keep supporting basic science so that down the road, we keep having new applications.
So, Jacques, you've already hinted that the role of basic science in everything you do and how you realized something was on the horizon coming from basic science. Can you say something about funding of science and priorities?
Okay, I think it's easier for us because I think that when it's very easy to understand by politicians or industrial because we have immediately the application, and application is a new kind of surgery. So our goal is to invent the future in surgery, and you know that everybody knows somebody who is going to be operated or was been operated. So something important that we explain to all our donors, for example, is that what I said as an introduction, that really, if we want to invent the future of surgery, and that changed totally, especially with artificial intelligence for the strategy, but also during an operation and after an operation, we need a very strong team of computer scientists. That is sure. And for us, I think it has been very easy to attract some African engineers and computer scientists from Africa. Today we have just 8, but we think it will be more than 40 in the next 2 or 3 years. And I think that a lot of young engineers or computer scientists can be attracted by healthcare program, and they immediately understand how important it is the work they have to do with us. But, and that was very interesting for Africa, we have created a cell of donors in France for a big project that we have with IRCAD Africa in research. I have explained to our African partners that is also very important to have a private donation from Africa. And for example, in 2 days, I have a video conference with a very strong industrial in Kigali. And his job is also to have some, to stimulate some fundraising in Africa. And just to explain, because just before you spoke about the government, what for me has been really I've been totally impressed. I was so lucky to have a meeting 5 times with President Paul Kagame. And I remember the first meeting was for me exceptional, because for me, he is a great chief of state, because he has totally understood the future and how the digital environment will be important for all the different specialties, include patient care. And, it was decided, I remember we had a meeting in the Marriott Hotel, and the decision to put from the government more than $16 million just for the building has been taken by Paul Kagame in 5 minutes. He sent before the Minister of Health, the Ambassador of Rwanda in France, but when I have explained the project, it was immediately yes. So I think that I was totally surprised. I was also totally surprised by how this young generation of African, especially in Rwanda, and that is also what was just said before, perhaps due to the genocide. I think that I see a parallel between Israel and Rwanda. Israel, it's the same, a huge genocide, and after that a young generation wanted to prove that they can be so high-level brains for the world. And I think that it is exactly what I have, that was my feeling after the visit of the memorial. And we invite every year, we have 5, 8 young engineers coming in Strasbourg for 1 month. And I am impressed how hard worker they are. So very brilliant brain, but also hard worker. But, what I have to say that I am here since half an hour, a little more, and all the speakers said, it's not a job. It's not a job. Never I think that I work. And that is exactly the feeling we have here in this institute. All the engineers, they don't look at the hours. They don't know. It's really a pleasure, as you said before, a pleasure to create something.
Thank you. So now a question from Francois from Tiano Ndai. I'm not sure where Tiano is, but the question is, how did you manage to win your Nobel Prize? Was it your goal since the beginning? Or did you start focusing on it at a certain time?
I must say it was certainly not my aim in my life. I didn't care at all about that. Right. And actually, well, I'm not saying that I was not happy to have the Nobel Prize, but I realized the day before I had it that I knew that all kind of people who had the Nobel Prize had time to ask a lot of people asking to recommend them for the Nobel Prize or doing all of kinds. Then I suddenly realized that I hadn't contacted anyone. So I say, maybe I'm not even nominated. So I didn't know. And of course, the day after, I realized that after all, I had a good chance to have it. It was there because it was something that, well, if it's with respect to the question, the answer is simple. I mean, I was interested by the science, by physics, by understanding things that we do not understand, and that was all the thing. And certainly, I remember when 50 years before the Nobel Prize, and 50 years before the Nobel Prize, when we discovered, my friend Robert Braut and me, what gave us later the Nobel Prize. We celebrated it, and it was even a bigger pleasure than the moment that I knew I got the Nobel Prize. That's all I had to say.
Well, we've lost Neil.
Niall lost the connection.
Yes, I am trying to reach out to him. It seems like we lost his connection.
Well, I'll answer the same question while you do that.
Exactly. Thank you.
Because, I mean, I also didn't think about it, and I didn't try, but I have a funny story about it. Because it was 1985 when we wrote the paper that got my PhD supervisor and I the Nobel Prize. And that Christmas time, I was sending out cards, and it was a takeoff on the people who write form letters, who just, tell about your whole life that year. And so it was just really off the wall. It started with, you've probably heard from the news that our CIA operation went well. Our children got parts in Broadway, but we said no, they had to complete their education. Winning the Nobel Prize was a nice surprise this year. It looks good on the mantle next to the Pulitzer. So it was just a total crazy thing. But I was separating them in the lab when my supervisor comes in, and he reads this, and he goes, "But Donna, you have not won the Nobel Prize." I said, "Well, I don't have kids on Broadway either, or a Pulitzer, so I don't think anyone is going to be thinking that I think I have a Nobel Prize." But to Gerard, you did not joke about the Nobel Prize. You can joke about all the rest, but at no time did you joke about winning the Nobel Prize. So to me, while I was doing this supposedly Nobel Prize winning work, I was joking about winning, not thinking in any way, shape, or form that I had done something that would win the Nobel Prize. So that's the way I see it. And obviously it happened 35 years ago. And then you get woken up one morning and be told that you've won it. And you've, long since thought, okay, great. And as somebody else, Rich Roberts said, for 35 years, the high intensity laser community knew me and maybe listened to me, but nobody else listened to me. And now I'm talking to you in Africa because the Royal Swedish Academy decided that I was worth talking to or something. It's a very weird feeling.
Thank you, Donna. So I just contacted Neil. He's trying to refresh his connection. He's going to go back. In the meantime, I'm going to try to help. We have another question. If you don't mind me going to that question. It was from Sarah Suleiman. The question reads as follows. How do we think about Nobel Prizes as a model for acknowledging the collaborative research model of today, particularly in Africa? Should we move to different model? So, Donna, do you want to, as you have a mic?
Well, and I was also thinking when people were talking, my favorite country to talk about is Korea. They were somebody without very many resources, and after their war, they thought, what are we going to do? We're going to put our eggs in the science basket. And they built a science city, and they did a lot. And so now if you go around the world, people are using Samsungs, and they're driving Hyundais and LG appliances. And it's just done an amazing thing for their economy that this is the road they went down. But when I visited last year, their question from their member of their National Academy said, but Donna, how do we win the Nobel Prize? And I'm going, is that really more important than, saving your whole economy? But the thing about the Nobel Prize, which is different than almost every other prize, it's for one thing, right? I don't think I would have won a Lifetime Achievement Award, but I did that one thing. And so I think in that case, it's open to anybody. It's you just have to have that one novel idea that you turn a corner away from something else and it starts something new. So I think that can be done anywhere, and I don't think it has to be done at a big institution necessarily. So, but I think it's also, as somebody said early on, it's luck. There's a lot of luck involved when you're going to get one of these very few things.
Thank you, Donna. Francois, do you want to comment on add your perspective on that question?
No, please. No.
So, all right. We're going to take another question that touches on women. I really wanted to take that question. It's from Sarah. A question from Prof. Donna. What is your opinion about how to promote more women Nobel laureate?
Well, yeah, okay. A lot was made out of the fact that it had been 55 years since between me and Maria Goeppert-Mayer. But now it's only been 2 years between Andrea and me. And I contacted Andrea right away and I said, I've started a new club. It's for female physics Nobel laureates. It's the first time ever that two of us were alive at the same time, right? I mean, Marie Curie had died before Maria Goeppert-Mayer won. She had passed away before I won. So I think it's, I think the doors is opened up, and I think you're going to see that women. I mean, this year there were quite a few female winners, and so I think this idea that it's going to not happen very often is old news. I think we're going to see women be recognized now.
Thank you. That's a great explanation. We have one more question from Prof. Jacques Massero. This is in French. I'm going to read it in French, so feel free to respond in French or English. J'ai une question pour le prof Jacques Massero. Peut-on espérer un développement des innovations digitales en mode open source? So,
okay, I think my answer is very clear. I can answer in French or in English. En français, quasiment tous les développements qu'on fait de logiciels, 90% on les met en open source. Donc c'est clair. Et de plus en plus, les industriels, notamment dans la robotique, le mettent aussi en open source. So just in English to say that in the work we do, that means on robotics or on virtual reality or augmented reality, majority of our software are open source. So there is no limit to use that. And if you want, you can contact the director of research of IRCAD, and he will explain all the different things that we have in open source.
So thank you very much. Just to update you that we are trying to get Prof. Neil Turok on AirMeet. While we wait for him, he wanted us to play another video of Prof. Leon from Rwanda, who worked with the colleague at EMS on one of the protesting research on COVID-19. So I am going to play that video while we wait for Prof. Neil. Thank you.
Yes, I will.
We came up with a new innovative idea called Hypercube. Hypercubes may be new to rock. We have enough time just to talk about this, but I want just to show you how does it really work properly. So we start this idea implementation by experiment. We did massive testing in the community, in the market, people who have been active during a lockdown here in Rwanda. So when you can see here on the picture, this is just a representation of this massive testing, and we were interested to detect that person who's positive. So, and then with that proof of concept, that I mentioned, we have been able just to use to implement in our lab the pool, the 20 pool size, where we combine the samples in a tube before testing them, and then we can just be able just to detect the pool which is positive, as you can see here, but other pools which are now negative can be declared the negative, and we speed up the feedback for the results. And of course, for this pool which is positive, we go back, we test one by one until we detect those who are just positive. This is how really the pool testing works on molecular level in our lab. And then with this great idea, the Rwanda has been just able to scale up the technology over the country. So you can see here the different sites where we are testing using this pooling approach, where we have, of course, we have molecular testing machines. So this really has been very helpful just to maintain our prevalence low, very low, with this scale-up approach. In conclusion, the pool testing has double benefits. So one is just minimizing the total number of the tests to reduce costs, and also maximizing the speed of the testing process to reduce the viral spread. And then we know increasing the sample volume in RT-PCR machines to enable pooling testing of larger group size could enable again even greater cost savings at lower prevalence. This is really very informative and very nice. All further mass testing is initially costly. Maintaining a low prevalence and indeed eliminating COVID-19 infection will, with the implementation of a group testing, become progressively more affordable. So the targets, as I mentioned here, we start with the where we have mass gathering, like in the markets. And then now Rwanda is using this just to test the arrival passengers at airports who are supposed just to come with 72 hours RT-PCR negative results. And then we apply this, and they can just be able to speed up the results within 24 hours. The passengers, they get their result. Of course, we apply this in different institutions, and now schools have opened, so we are also applying this in the schools, and this can also be applied in different other settings. And a good example is just in South Africa. South Africa and the Edinburgh, they have also started just to apply this pooling testing approach. Before I conclude, I want just to acknowledge and thank all of our collaborators, of course, Professor Turok, Wilfried, I mentioned, and the Professor Jacob Sub. We have been just behind this technology, also our great collaborators. Of course, I can't forget other institutions that you see here, especially our Rwanda Joint Task Force, which is gathering all of the institutions involved in this COVID-19 responses in Rwanda. Thank you very much.
Okay, I believe I'm back.
You are back, Daniel. That's great. Very happy.
Okay, great.
To play.
Sorry to lose you. I think we will wind up the session now. I just want to thank all of our participants and thank all of our speakers and the people who made the videos, and encourage all the participants to enjoy the rest of the forum. Keep in mind that we're all backing you. You're the real people. You're the future. And we will do everything we can to make it possible for you to make the same kind of discoveries which you heard about today. So thank you, everybody, and enjoy the rest of the forum.
So thank you. We have the master of ceremony here. We're going to give us some instruction of the next steps as we're enjoying the next session from. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Donna, Francois, and Jacques. It was great. We have a lot of people attending this session. We have more questions. We don't have time to actually go through questions. We really appreciate your time. So over to you, Georgie, for the next step. Where do we go from here?
Right. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Donna, Francois. Jacques, I have a question. I have a business idea, right? Let's say this is for you and Neil particularly, right? Let's say, for example, Neil has a bit of a bandwidth problem, and Professor Jacques has all the network. How can we digitally make sure we have the same bandwidth so that when next time Neil is on a session, he doesn't drop off?
That is a business question.
Yeah, it's not an Africa. It's not an Africa specific.
I have the answer because we had exactly the same problem. Because when we decided to do the webinar since 6 months, very often the quality was it depends, and now we just buy what we call Zoom Business High Definition. So it's a little more expensive, but the quality is really absolutely better. So that's perhaps a part of the answer. But it is not
absolutely.
But it is just business because I am not the big boss of, unfortunately, of 100% of the share, for the good business model. Okay.
Neil, thank you so much, the panelists. And Neil, thank you so much. There's a particular comment that came for you, Neil, that I think you need to hear this. It was Reinald Fogun, I think, says, I'm not sure if this is a politically correct thing to say, but I'm happy that Neil is giving us insights into the dramatic background of some of these great minds. I hope you can use these stories if or when we meet gifted juniors living hardships. So thank you for pulling it out of Donna, pulling it out of Professor Donna, Professor Francois, and Jacques. Thank you for pulling it out of them with very personal stories. So we really do appreciate it, panelists.
I can give a remark, just 1 second remark.
Thanks a lot.
Please. Absolutely.
Just 1 second remark to say that I see that the evolution of Nobel Prize, it's improving and improving every year, because the first surgeon who has a Nobel Prize was Kocher, just because he has invented a new little grasper to operate a thyroid. So just to see the difference of level.
All right.
Yes, you have to be determined. How a difficult struggle can prepare you for that.
Absolutely. And Neil, don't think we've forgotten you, because we know you have your own stories as well. Hopefully you will be on the receiving end of these questions. Is there anything that we've left that might need to be done? I think we're good with that. I could probably just move on to what we have next.
Yes.
Absolutely. So Professor Jacques, Professor Francois, Professor Donna, Professor Neil, thank you very much. The crucial point that was said by Sir Richards was the grandmother test, telling us what to do. Tell your grandmother what you do, and if she understands well enough to explain to others, then you've done your job really well. So the four of you here have managed to explain to us, even to a level that I'm sure when we're in a panel discussion, maybe physically, a lot of people normally look at the stage and they think, oh, it's so distant how to be a Nobel Prize winner and to be on stage, but you've made it look like it's such a welcome area. So we can't thank you enough. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Fantastic. So now to give you just a bit more detail on what's coming up next. We have the parallel sessions, the breakout sessions. We have 2 breakout sessions happening at the same time. So one is going to be on combating disease outbreaks, preventing future shocks, with a focus on Ebola and COVID-19. Obviously, one borrowing from the other in terms of lessons learned in managing it. The moderator will be Dr. Sarah Suleiman from Boston, and Dr. Sarah has been asking some very pertinent questions in the previous sessions. So we will definitely get a chance to put out as much questions as possible. And the breakout session 2 will be the impact of COVID-19 on already vulnerable groups such as youth and women. The moderator for this one will be Ndeye Makalu from California, USA. So The next session will begin at exactly 4 p.m. So we have 19 minutes. In between that, we will play the next Einstein Forum videos, the NEF Fellows videos, and we'll have that possibly on loop. And don't forget, you still get to go to the lounge, interact with as many people as possible, and just wait for when we have the sessions. So when the sessions come on, you just click on sessions, and then you pick the one that you want to go for, breakout session 1 or breakout session 2. So please, go enjoy as much as possible, maybe grab some water or just have a quick break, and then we'll be back in just over 10 minutes to carry on with the rest of the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm.